Hey there, family, friends, foreigners and foes, whoever is watching and listening, wherever this reaches. This is Rob C., and I am John Freeman. We are the Master's Apprentices, and we look forward to learn from and follow our Master's character, teaching, and life's example as we try to represent him and his standards with whoever we meet and wherever we go, hoping to bring you all alongside us. So thank you again for joining us in another simple discussion between two imperfect men looking to please their perfect master. Today, we're going to I think we're going to basically be kind of ending off in our series of the attributes of God. We thought we were going to go a bit further with this, but it has, honestly, we've been doing some thinking and trying to figure out what we want to do here with this channel. And we think we're going to be going a little bit different of a route. We're still going to be doing some teachings. We're still going to be trying to bring attention to God and the truths of his word, and trying to help others consider this God who they serve. We're still going to be doing that stuff, but we're not going to follow the same format that we've been following. Normally, we've been basically recording a Zoom call and putting some notes that are on the screen. I'm not sure that it's, being as, would you say, productive as it could be. It's certainly not receiving very much attention. And it's not necessarily that we're looking for the attention per se, but if what we're doing is not actually going and being a help to others, we want to take and put our energy out and put it in a way where we can actually accomplish that we can do good with it. So today we're going to kind of close this out with providing some resources off the top of our heads. It's a bit impromptu. We don't have any notes here. We're just going to kind of tell you, what we think about certain individuals like pastors and teachers, books, resources, and there's a lot more than what we can come up with over here. But we're hoping that with this video, whoever is able to see this whenever you do, that it provides something that you can look at and look into and find people that can go into far more depth and communicate these truths about our God in far better ways that we could. So we're recognizing our weakness. We're trying to recognize our strengths, and we're trying to go in the direction that is going to be most helpful to the kingdom and most glorifying to God. So, Rob, I'll let you start off. We could, I don't know, what resources can you come up with that you think of that could be a benefit to the church?
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind is books, and the first one that always would come to mind is probably A.W. Pink on attributes of God. It's a Reformed perspective. He covers at least 15 attributes in there. I can't remember, it's 15 to 18, somewhere in there. It's a very good book, and the thing I like
some publishers take one of the attributes out, right? Do you remember what attribute it was that they take out of there?
Was it justice or righteousness they take out?
I'm not sure, but for the listening audience or the viewing audience, just understand there are certain copies from certain publishers that take out one or more of the attributes of God.
Yeah, it's true. And yeah, so that brings up a good point where you can't just go by one guy only, because you might have the book that doesn't have everything. So that's just one book, A.W. Pink. We have to keep in mind too with A.W. Pink that is A.W. Pink's book is good because he's read people before him. He's read Puritans or the guys in the 1700s or 1800s theology, etc. So
people that had a whole lot more time devoted to reading the Word of God and meditating on the truths therein.
It's almost like a little summary of some others. He has quotes in his book of Stephen Charnock, and in his book is probably about 1,000 pages and doesn't even cover half as many attributes as A.W. Pink.
Be ready to read. If you go into the Puritans, whoever is reading, you go into the Puritans, you're going to find a lot of really good stuff, but you're going to have to there's a lot of run-on sentences. It's very deep. It's very precise. If you're thinking generalized, the Puritans are probably not something that you're going to want to read. But if you really want to get down to the nitty-gritty of the truth of God's word and attributes and anything Bible, like, they bleed Bible. The Puritans really did. In all of their, ways that maybe they have failed, the fact of the matter is they were in a very strong and deep pursuit of God, and they really took seriously what it was that they read in the Word.
They didn't have television to distract them, or phones, right? So they put a lot of time into this. I mean, they didn't even have lights. So I mean, just by candlelight. I mean, just think of some of that. I think Richard Baxter wrote 70 volumes. I mean, how do you write 70 volumes? No one else has done that. Not
but what, before 25, what did John Calvin write? All of Calvin's Institutes and then rewrite it or something like that?
Yeah.
By his early 20s, man. I mean, these guys are going to college by 12 years old. Yeah. I mean, they just had a lot of time. They didn't have as many distractions, like you're saying.
No. And they didn't, and I guess we need to speak about things that are simple too, as well. When I say simple, I mean for someone that's kind of new to it. But when I say new to it or simple, I mean it's stuff. If I read it for the 10th time, I'm getting so much out of it still. And that would be like A.W. Pink. A.W. Tozer is another one that has very good works on attributes. You can speak about that.
J.I. Packer. Doesn't J.I. Packer do that too?
Oh yeah. What's it? Is it Knowing God or something like that?
Yeah, I think so. Yep.
I've never read it, but from what I understand, it's extremely good, even though I haven't read it. And Thomas Watson is someone that people don't really know about that. And The Body of Divinity, I believe it's called, that book. It was one of Spurgeon's favorite books. That he considered that a gem, The Body of Divinity by Thomas Watson. It covers a bunch of topics in there, but it does go over the attributes. And I think better than A.W. Pink, and very simple like A.W. Pink.
It's definitely much more simple.
Yeah.
You can actually, a lot of these books too, if anyone, a lot of these books, you can go right on YouTube and type in the name of the book and the author, and it'll pop up as an audiobook. So you don't even need to go and buy these things. What an amazing world we live in, right? And an amazing time that we can look up and have these kinds of resources right at our fingertips. And honestly, that this is one of the sad things, that with all these things at our fingertips, we instead choose to go look at, funny cats.
Right.
Right. And funny cats funny cats. It's funny to watch them sometimes, but when the majority of your time is spent just in fruitless pursuits in those ways and not pursuing God and the things of God and the meaning of life and, your purpose in this world, you're missing something. You're missing out on far better than a few laughs that you can have by, just going and looking at funny things. The funny things aren't wrong. It's just everything in its time and its season.
Right. I mean, it's true. I mean, it's really can be such a blessing to pick up, I say pick up a book or read it online, or like you say, YouTube has books read for you. I mean, what is really more important, I mean, in life, to be watching something to laugh at it, or something that, you can get to know God deeper. I mean, it's really important. I mean, it's okay to have something to laugh out in downtime and stuff. I think it's fine. But
Ecclesiastes 12, what's the whole duty of man? Fear God and keep his commands. Like, that's our purpose in life, is this pursuit of God and doing things according to his will. And perceiving him in the right ways. And so ultimately, that's what we've been trying to do with these videos, everyone, is kind of bring an excitement, a pursuit of an interest in the person of God, because he's the most important thing and one in all of existence. And so whether you're listening to these authors, which the authors that Rob has mentioned are much further back in time than you have modern authors that are out there. So like some modern authors, you got John MacArthur, you have R.C. Sproul, you got James
Excellent.
White, James R. White, and Martin Lloyd Jones. I mean, you have a lot of different authors that are out there these days. Oh, John Piper is another one. Like you can go into older times or newer times, and you're going to find differences in the writing styles. You're going to find differences in content, in the way that they bring content to you. But nevertheless, these are people that I know that we have at least looked at and been able to glean quite a bit from and grow deeper in our relationship with God by considering the things that they've said about God and about his word. Do they all agree? No, they don't all agree. Do we all agree with everything that they hold to? No, we don't agree with everything that they hold to. Some of them might hold more loosely to certain areas of theology than others, some deeper than others. But the fact of the matter is, these are good people to go to start, at least. Start looking into these people. Start understanding. Read their books. Read their content. A lot of these people, they have resources online as well. So you have websites. R.C. Sproul with Ligonier Ministries. John MacArthur with Grace to You. John Piper with what does John Piper do?
Desiring God.
Desiring God. Like James White with Alpha and Omega Ministries. James White, if I were to say someone who goes more technical into things, it would be your James White. So he'll get down to the Hebrew and the Greek and everything, and he's studied these languages and he knows it really well. He can read the original texts, and he goes really deep with it, where maybe like a John Piper, he would get more practical in it. R.C. Sproul would lean closer to James White, but also R.C. Sproul, he gives you a lot in a very short period of time. So in like 20, 30 minutes, R.C. Sproul can really, you can get a really good, meaty message that's just very effectual for your soul to understand about God and the things of God. So with that, we have a few books that we've mentioned here. We have a few people that we've mentioned here, a few online resources that we've mentioned here. You can go to, other websites maybe that you can go to for biblical things would be like BibleHub.com. You go on that, you can have every single version of the Bible. You can have tons of commentaries from people who are Puritans and not. I mean, you got maps, you got diagrams, you got all kinds of stuff at BibleHub.com. What is another? SermonAudio.com. Huge wealth of sermons. I mean, all those individuals that we've mentioned. Yeah, all the individuals that we mentioned, both the Puritans and the moderns, you can find their messages there. John Calvin, C.H. Spurgeon, all these, obviously they're not the older guys, they're not reading it. Someone's reading their texts, but this is really good information that you can look at and you can glean from short ones to long ones. I mean, the whole gambit. What else we have here? Music. So you have, let me pop up here. If you have anything to say too, Rob, feel free, please just step right in. But I'm going to pop up here some music. So like in various styles of music, we live in a time where we don't actually need to listen to secular music to enjoy music. We don't have to. There's some secular that, is kind of, it's not damaging to your spirit to listen to it, of course. But I would encourage the people who are watching and listening that, not only do you want to be reading the right things, not only do you want to be seeing the right things, but you want to be listening to the right things too. So we have
That's right.
so many different artists. You got Sovereign Grace. If you want more worshipful type, hymnal type songs in a more modern sense, you would have like Nathan Drake. I don't know. What is it? Re-Awaken hymns. He does a lot of the hymns, but he does it in a more modern style. Sovereign Grace music, they will take and do the same kind of thing with, but not as acoustically sounding as Nathan Drake does. You have the Gettys if you want modernized hymns. So new music that is very full and dynamic, but is original hymns that are modern but have a hymn feel to them. You have people like Josh Garrels, excellent songs that he does. A very unique style that he has. If you want to go into, I don't even know what to call Josh Garrels, like what style of music he is. Like he'll have accordions in his music. He has a country sound and like a new modern sound at the same time. It's very original. So take a listen to him. You have, if you're talking about like hip hop artists, the best, me personally, I enjoy Linne. Linne, I mean, there is no other music.
Okay.
There's no other music other than hip hop music that you can get as much content in one 3-minute or less song as you can in hip hop. And Linne does an absolutely fantastic job at doing that. He has actually an entire album called The Attributes of God, which is fantastic. Another 2 albums, Lyrical Theology 1 and Lyrical Theology 2. He's got another one called Stories. And all of these things, like, it's very deeply biblical, like just really deeply biblical. It is very theologically rich in the music. So there's plenty more that I'm sure you can even mention. But in the music area, just to kind of start out, you start looking under those people in Amazon Music or YouTube or whatever, and you'll start finding other artists underneath that. But at least these are places where people can start at.
Yeah, it's great stuff. I mean, I'm sure I will listen to this, watch this video just for the music part. It's stuff that I wasn't familiar with myself. So I think that's excellent. We covered the music, some book suggestions, and the modern day people. And I always mention Puritans in them, but there's some modern day people that are excellent as well. Not just for attributes, but a guy like Paul Washer. I don't know if we ever mentioned him on.
Yeah, no, we didn't mention him. He is more of a like
fantastic.
Stick it to you, like practical godly living, like call you out where you're at, worldliness. He calls it out, like he doesn't mince words, and he just does some really good stuff. If I were to say any specific sermons that really stuck out to me, it would be his one on the centrality of Christ. It was called The Centrality of Christ. You can find all these on Sermon Audio, by the way. You have the shocking youth message, which a lot of people have heard that. And then you have his 10 indictments of the modern church. Like those are 3 really potent ones that he said, and he has plenty more.
Oh yeah, he's always been excellent. His sermons, yeah, definitely Paul Washer. If we were to say for modern day sermons, I would say Paul Washer would be probably the best guy I can think of in our modern day. If you go back a bit, though, I'd like to suggest maybe not just for attributes, really, but we can go into other areas as well. Albert Martin.
Yes, he was he influenced Paul Washer quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think in the audio era there's anyone as good as Albert Martin. You can make a case that Lloyd Jones is. I think Albert Martin, I give an edge over Lloyd Jones. It's debatable. If someone likes Lloyd Jones better, well, they're both the 2 best guys in the audio era, is Lloyd Jones and Albert Martin. And then you bump, you get a little closer to the time we're in now, then Paul Washer would be the best guy. Yeah. And Paul Washer can be just as good as Albert Martin or Martin Lloyd Jones as well. Just depends on the sermon.
Yeah. In the, I would say in the area of like calling it what it is type deal.
It's as good as
like
anything.
it can even be construed as harsh at times. But the fact of the matter is, especially in our modern day where sin is not seen for what sin is, we need preachers out there willing to stand up and speak against sin and claim, just call it for what it is.
Yeah. And that's what we get from Paul Washer. I don't get that feeling as much from MacArthur, but MacArthur's a different kind of teacher. He was a pastor teacher. I do think John MacArthur is very good. He's extremely good at times. I don't care for his take on Revelation.
He's very articulate. He's very articulate with what he says.
Yes, he's good. Pipe is good. R.C. Sproul is, I think, in my opinion, even I personally like him even more than Piper or MacArthur even. I mean, I think R.C. Sproul was excellent.
Yeah, he's got a really good mix of humor and depth of content.
Yeah.
Which, again, like him and John MacArthur, I think in their own ways, it's like if I were to put them, I don't put them in this kind of area, but if I were to, like in a competing type of sense, I don't know. I think they're both on par with each other. I just don't agree with John MacArthur's, end times views.
Right, Revelation.
I agree more with, Sproul and his end times views, but I also don't agree with Sproul and his, baptizing of babies views either. This is what we were getting at, or I was getting at earlier, is we don't need to agree in every area with these individuals, but they bring a lot to the table. And that's really important. As believers, we are pursuing this God. We're pursuing the creator of the universe, and we want to understand him and know him for who he actually is. We don't just get to determine that, but we do need to work within the realm of our conviction. If you look and you read the word and you understand it to say something and mean something, pursue that. Be convicted in that and hold to it. But always be, you hear the term semper reformata, always reforming. Always be reforming. Always understand that you could be wrong in an area. Just because, you've even been a believer for decades, like it doesn't matter. Always be ready to learn. Don't be so prideful to think that you've got it, that, the Holy Spirit would have shown me that. Well, maybe he didn't want to show you that because there was something you needed to learn by being wrong in that at that far along in your Christian walk. Like, we're supposed to be learning about this God and considering who it is that we serve. We are his apprentices. And, sometimes the master allows the apprentice to go on doing the wrong thing so that eventually he can tell him the right thing at the right time where it will be most beneficial to that apprentice. And so this is what we're getting at. Like, learn from these people that we're mentioning, learn from these resources that we're mentioning, and do it with a heart that's pursuing God. And not just pursuing your image of God, but pursuing the actual one true God. Like, let that be your aim.
To that, that's true. I mean, that's the exact perspective a person needs. I mean, and we can't also, and you've already kind of covered this, and when we speak of these guys, we're not like worshiping man by any means. When we say someone's excellent or this one's better than that one, we're just, trying to give the information out. And sometimes you have to, the way you critique it, it comes out that way, when I say Albert Martin is the best guy in order, I'm not, worshiping, idolizing.
If people are thinking that that's what we're doing in these videos, like, you really need to consider what it is you're thinking.
Yeah, right.
Like, honestly, you just need to really consider is what you're thinking. We are coming and we are bringing this information here as a help to you. And if you're taking it as being something where we're elevating men above God or above the Bible, like, you're wrong. You're wrong. period. That's not what we're doing here. And people
Right.
all over the internet will do that kind of stuff. So, it kind of needs to be said there. But the fact of the matter is, we're trying to encourage people to pursue God. We've said it over and over again. And, this is information that we have here. These are good resources. These are good individuals. They teach good things, and they're good starting places for you in your walk. If you don't know them, get to know these individuals, and then look in the suggested videos underneath them and learn from them. But be reading the word, so that when you hear these things that these people say, or whatever their teaching is, you can go and compare it like a good Berean.
Yes. Right.
The Bereans did this with Paul. He was an apostle, and they still question him. What did they question him with? The word. That's what you do. Question us by the word. Question your resources by the word. That's the goal. That's the aim. All with trying to practically live out a godly life as God would define it.
Yeah, I think we covered a lot. We covered a lot of guys, a lot of books, sermons, music. I mean, aside from attributes, I mean, we covered, we mentioned a lot of guys that cover topics aside from even the attributes. And it doesn't, as you already kind of mentioned, it's somewhat of a preference. If you like 1600, 1700, so modern day, it can be for some people. Maybe it's difficult to read the older stuff, and that's nothing wrong with that. Everyone's a little, it might be a little richer the further back you go in time. That's what I think. I think it's got more depth. But
it might be a lot more rich, but I'll tell you, there's a lot more digging you got to do, because they don't talk like us. They don't, they don't use words that we use these days. So, you got to dig a little bit. And if you're pursuing God, if you really want him, you'll dig. Yeah,
right. So there's a lot of different options out there. And, just to summarize again, we mentioned about attributes. The main guys with attributes would probably be A.W. Pink and Thomas Watson, and possibly J.I. Packer, which I've never read that book. I believe it's Knowing God. It's supposed to be excellent. So those are the three, I think, probably, even though I haven't read Packer's book, but I think that those are probably the three main books for attributes. You've got a Puritan, it's very easy to understand, Thomas Watson. And you have A.W. Pink, it's a classic. It's a fantastic book, it really is. And
if you want to go the poetic route, you can read John Bunyan. They said if you were to cut him, he'd bleed Biblian.
Yeah,
you read his stuff. It's just very, very good. And second best-selling book of all time, The Pilgrim's Progress. Like, he wrote it in prison. There are theological truths that are just ingrained all throughout that book. So, I mean, that among many others. It's like some of them just overtly theological, and others are more poetic theological, but all of it, they're heavily focused on God, and heavily focused on what it looks like to actually live a godly life. Really consider, because it's super important.
Right. And I'm going to mention another book too. It's very poetic, as you mentioned that. I just can't remember the name, looking it up. So, I mean, nothing wrong with doing that right now. I might as well get it right, because, that's the name of it. I was close. Looking Unto Jesus by Isaac Ambrose. Now, it's from the 1600s. And it's,
I haven't even heard that. I haven't heard of it.
Yeah, you know what? Some guy from Australia told me about that book a few years ago. I never heard of it either. It's like 600 or 700 page book, Looking at Jesus, right? It's very poetic. You made me think of that right away. If you like poetic kind of writing, it's got a real upbeat, positive, poetic feel. Now, what does it cover, Looking Unto Jesus? Well, it starts off, it covers, it talks about the incarnation, He does a great job there. You know, the God man, he gets into all these different things. He talks about this very well. And he goes to the life of Jesus. Okay. And then after the life of Jesus, well, not after, but during his life, it's leading up to the cross, what took place on the cross. And then it's the ascension, the resurrection, then the ascension. And it just covers. So it's Christology like on steroids, that book by Isaac Ambrose, Looking into Jesus. I never really read the whole thing. It's so long, but I've read some parts of it multiple times. It's a very, very good book. In fact, I mentioned that because also you mentioned John Bunyan. From what I understand, there wasn't a single Puritan that did not have a copy of that book, Looking into Jesus. It was it was a very, very popular book during its era. Yeah, in the 1600s and perhaps even turning into 1700s. It was an extremely popular book. So that's something to think about. And most people never heard of it. A pastor from Australia, actually, a Reformed pastor, told me about that. I asked him about Christology books, and he said, here's a gem of a book. He check this out. You know, I get it for 99 cents on Kindle. I mean,
99 cents. Dude.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah,
99 cents. Something that like
it's unbelievable.
Someone's life was devoted, who spent untold hours writing something that like, it's like paying 99 cents for, you know, an entire mine shaft that someone dug out with a hammer and a pick. Like, look, we really are so blessed to be able to have the resources that we do these days.
Pretty incredible.
So, I mean, I think we've given a whole bunch of information here today that, you know, we've recognized our limits. We cannot bring the attributes of God to you in the same level, in the same depth, in the same creative way that others have been able to do it. And so sometimes it's best just to kind of get out of the way and let the people who are good doing what they're doing do it. We're going to try figuring out what it is that is, what's the best way for us to go and do what we want to do, because we want to bring attention to this amazing master that we have. And we want to bring others alongside us if we can do that. And whoever that is, we hope to be a good blessing to you, and by virtue of that, be a blessing to many others. So thank you. Thank you again for listening to the Master's Apprentices. Hopefully within the next couple of weeks, we're going to be starting to do what it is that we're intending to do. They're going to be shorter videos, more shareable, and we're hoping, we're just hoping to do it in our own way, and hopefully it can be a blessing. So if without further ado, if you're all set, Rob, we can close out on this today.
Yeah, we extended this quite a bit, but I think there's some great information for people. So I'm all set. I mean, I'm ready to sign off here.
All right. All right. Well, thank you all for listening. John Freeman out. Rob C., you out?
Out.
All right. Grace and peace, everybody. Bye.